welcome to the podcast. You are in for a treat. We have a superintendent joining us today, John Hannah. He is going to, you guys, give you so many ideas, so many ideas, ways to ask questions, ways to cover stories, different things that you can highlight and the impact that it makes. Especially for a small school district. They have about under 500 students, and they're actually up now. And so it's going to be interesting to be able to learn some of the things that they've been able to focus on that have really elevated their enrollment in a time where many schools are fighting declining enrollment. So he's the superintendent at Morton School District in the state of Washington. We'll talk through how they use social media, why he was looking for help with social media, what they maybe weren't able to do before. He's going to talk the exact system that they use and then the impact that it's made. He'll also talk about a video series that they're doing and a podcast that they do where they're really giving voice to their kids. And you're not going to want to miss the tips that he shares at the end. Very powerful episode. Thank you so much, John, for hanging out with us in this episode. And you guys, it's coming up on the summer months. We have an absolute free book study coming up. Social Media for Schools is the book I released last year. It's proven storytelling strategies and ideas to celebrate your students and staff while keeping your sanity. You guys, 24-25 school year, you need to do a better job with social media. This book is your guide. You are going to get a personal walkthrough of the 5 sections over 5 different book study sessions on Zoom, all for free, but you got to get signed up. So get signed up now. It's starting in July. You're not going to want to miss it. Actually, I think the first session is the end of June. So I think I need to correct myself there. So get signed up right now. Totally free. Grab the book on Amazon. Start reading the book. We'll go section by section. It's very readable, very actionable, and it's going to make a difference. Okay. Now let's get to this week's K-12 PR tip. All right, today's K-12 PR tip is all about summer school. Do you have summer school activities going on? Do you have activities, groups, sports teams that are still going on in the summer? Sometimes your staff can look different for those types of items than they do in the rest of the year. So take the time now to find out the people in charge of those programs and make sure they know how to submit content to you for social media. It's a little bit different vibe, right? In the summertime, they're doing some exciting things, some kind of different things. Not that you're not doing exciting things during the year. I don't mean that. But maybe it's really easy for them to snap a picture or a short video and get that to you because your storytelling shouldn't stop in the summertime, right? If there's still things going on with your students and staff, we want to tell that story via social media. So find out who those people are now. Make sure they know they have your email address or they have the form or however they need to submit content to you, and celebrate that content. You can get it scheduled out. You don't have to celebrate it the day you get it. You probably have a busy summer as well, but you can get that scheduled out so that people stay connected to the great things your school is doing. Now let's find out a host of ways that you can tell your story for your school with Superintendent John Hannah. Let's get started. Welcome to the podcast, John. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. It's a rainy day here in Washington.
Well,
Typical.
imagine that. It didn't actually rain when I was out there presenting with you, which was really awesome. But I've got John Hannah today with me. He is the superintendent at Morton School District, and that's in the state of Washington, not Washington, D.C., but in the state of Washington. So, John, why don't you just share your background and then tell us a little bit about your role with Morton?
Sure. So I've been in education now for about 26 years, all of it here in the state of Washington. Started off as a elementary teacher and worked my way up. I've been at 5 different districts in my time. All of them are small schools, rural schools, looking at schools that are maybe, you know, 20 to 30 miles off of a major interstate. Some of those are even longer. My current district, I always tell people I'm an hour from the nearest Walmart. So it kind of gives a little
Me
sense of
too,
where
John.
we are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
it's
So,
perfect.
yes.
Yeah. But my time at Washington, like I said, it's been as a teacher. Then I moved up to a principal. I was actually a principal on a school on the reservation over in central Yakima for a few years. And for the last 10 years, have been here in Morton, Washington. It's a small logging community, mill town. We are almost halfway between Mount St. Helens and Mount Rainier. It's kind of where we are. We're so close to Mount Rainier, we can't see it. The hills next to us get in the way. We're just too close to see it. And my 10 years here has been in really two roles. The last three as solely a superintendent, and the 7 before that, I did a dual role as the junior, senior high principal and superintendent. And so during that time, we've had our enrollment's been anywhere from district-wide from 270 kids to about 450, 470 right now. So a little bit of change, but we are definitely a small rural school.
Awesome. And that is right where my heart is, because that's where my experience has been. So you guys are actually pretty high right now for enrollment compared to what you have been.
We've seen this a major shift in our enrollment here really since COVID started. We saw a boost in our enrollment during that time. Washington had seen a lot of that where people have left the urban and suburban areas and started to come out more rural. People have chosen to either move out here or transport their kids out here. The other thing for us, we've really shifted some of our programs in our school over that time, really highlighting our vocational impact. And so we have a lot of kids who choice into our district for some of the different programs that we do, starting off with 7th grade and beyond. And the other piece, we've really committed to early learning. So there is no preschool run privately within at least 30, maybe more miles. So we put on a preschool program for 3 and 4-year-olds, and we transport kids to that. So we're the only really show in town on that. So those two programs, both early learning and then at the end vocational, so kind of helped our enrollment grow.
Okay, yeah, and you shared your passion for helping with both of those. That's awesome. So social media, you guys are a fairly small district, but how does your school use social media to celebrate your students and staff?
Yeah, for us, it was a struggle for a long time, as you know. We've talked about how we have struggled with that. When as a small school, I have the same reports as bigger districts. Whether you have 3,000 kids, you have 30,000 kids, or you have 300 kids, we have the same reports to the state, the same requirements, same duties. There's just less of it to do. So we've always had to make a choice. What is it we're going to use on social media? Because what can fit in there? And it's hard to find the time to do it or the time to learn how to do it. So we struggled for a long time. And that's where you and I met in doing a search engine one day and you popped up. So now what we do is we use social media to really tell our story. There is a lot as a district that we think people know because I see it every day. My staff sees it. We see this kid do something amazing, or we see a program that we're so proud of. And we have this belief that everybody knows what we know. And what social media does is it helps connect that for us. It helps tell our community, did you know? Did you know this goes on? Did you know this program is being offered to the kids? Did you know our kids are doing this type of event at this type of place? It helps them understand what they're proud of. I think small schools are always proud of their communities. Small schools are really the center of their town. We're kind of sometimes the only game in town. And we're giving our community something to be proud of, and they know what they're proud of, as opposed to, well, I went there, so I'm proud of it. I went there, I'm proud of it. And do you know X, Y, and Z goes on there? So for us, it really helps us tell that story that we're not very good at otherwise.
So we started working together about a year ago. And so a little bit before that, tell me what kind of prompted you I'm not exactly sure what you typed into Google or whatever your search engine was, but what prompted you to get to that point, John?
Well, really, it kind of started from my board talking to say we want to use social media more, and we we tried to do the typical small school way. We tried to find someone in-house that we thought could take that on. And we had people who were willing to, but again, they're trying to squeeze it into their full day. They're trying to squeeze it into their already 8+ hour day. And what happened was we were still missing what we wanted. We weren't getting the impact. And so in reality, I get on Google and I type in, social media for schools, and your site, your company pops up. And that's where we started our conversations, really looking at what is that? And that's where we started that conversation. What is it? How do we do it? And what we needed was a couple different things. We needed a strategy. We needed a thing that was doable. And then I needed a thing that could really celebrate all that's going on. When I go and speak to our local community groups and different events in our area, they really want to get those personal stories. They want to hear about, they don't really want to hear about enrollment. They don't want to know where our financial budget is. They want to know, tell me a story. Tell me that kids have work ethic. Tell me that kids are learning skills that are going to help them when they graduate. Tell me about kids going to college. Tell me about the success of these different programs. Tell me why, in our case, why is Morton a place to be proud of? So that's where we started in learning how to do that. And since then, what we have seen is a very positive impact from our community. And I think we're able to share much more of what we know. And then recently we've had a success with a school bond that passed. And I don't think it passes without sharing the stories that we were doing, because it's not campaigning, but it's definitely let people know this is what we do.
Yeah, we were talking just a little bit earlier, and certainly word of mouth has certainly changed over the years, and a lot
Yeah,
of word of mouth is now what people are saying about you, in person and online. And in the absence of knowing what's happening at your school, they will gravitate to the person that loves to shout the loudest about something negative that happened.
right.
Your school and your community, and we'll give links to your Facebook and Instagram pages. I mean, they're literally seeing 2, 3 stories a day on what's happening in your 4 walls or outside of your 4 walls to be able to make a difference. And I think that really can give them something positive to talk about, and it can end up reflecting well on you. Would you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. One of the things we talk about as superintendents, we're always looking at, obviously we look at our own district in terms of where we at financially, where we at staff-wise, policy, where we at in community relations. But we also, one of the things we always focus on as superintendents is the legislature. What's that impact? Because it has a major impact on us. And so one of the things is we always tell new superintendents who come in, if you're not telling your story to your legislator, someone else is. And it's probably not that story that you want. And I think social media is that same way. If we're not out there saying, this is what happens when your kid is here, your grandkid is here, this is what's happening where you're at your alma mater, someone else is telling that story. And it's probably not the story that we want to be told, or it's probably not the story that we believe to be true. And that's where our partnership has been huge, is because we get to share that. We get to share the amazing things that's go on. When I talk to my kids, because we do a podcast here on our own, I always tell kids, I want you to think about your community. Think about your grandma and grandpa here in town. How do they know what happens at school? What do they think about kids today? And where do they get that opinion from? And it's pretty quickly that kids kind of thought, I don't think they probably get a lot of good information about kids today or about schools. I'm like, that's probably true. So I want you to tell your story of why you're happy, why you like this teacher, why do you like this program, why is this important to you? And I think that becomes the message that we get to tell in social media, is that same thing about why is it important for you as a community member to be proud of, support, and be knowledgeable about what's happening in your town. Because in Washington here, we survive by our community support.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I love that perspective that you put for your kids. And you got to put the same thing for your teachers, right? It's like they don't know What do they think about teachers? Only what's in the headlines, and that's usually not what we want them
It,
to
yeah.
know or think that
And
every.
teachers, they do such a good job of, especially if you think like elementary, it's kind of an easier one to think of. They have their 25 to 30 kids. They're close with them. They're close with those mom and dads, but that's where that story stays.
Mhm.
It doesn't get bigger. And that's the sad part, is that bigger piece, it really does matter. And it makes a huge impact. I really don't think that we would have passed our bond. We failed it twice before, because in Washington you need a supermajority to pass a bond, and we failed it twice before. Our previous bond was 1998, and that was a small remodel, and we really had some needs. I mean, we had an elementary that the roof was falling off the building. We had a ceiling come down in a bathroom once. I mean, the building in 1948 needed help, but being able to share not just the need, but being able to share the positives, what's going on. Talking about the sign language program going on in our elementary school, talking about the STEM activities, showing kids, a kid leaning over, tying another kid's shoe, waiting in line for lunch. I mean, it just shows the perspective how great kids are, how we have great kids and staff who are doing fun things. We had not too long ago a picture of our principal doing a STEM activity with science with some of our first graders. And he just, he's in there and he's working with them. And that happens at every elementary school across the country. But really, we're not very good in education telling that story.
Mhm.
And a picture says a lot.
Yeah. So tell me how the system works, because I mean, obviously you work with our team. We're doing the
Yep.
social media management, but the same system can work whether or not you have us. I mean, some schools do have a school PR person or an assistant or somebody doing it. But tell me, how are you capturing that first grade, experiment that teacher's doing with those kids?
So when we talk to our staff, and we do this probably twice a year, where we try to do a social media. We used to do it. We used to call it the kickoff the first year. Now we just kind of as a reminder. It doesn't take us very long. But when we talk to the teachers, really the first thing we say is we don't want to have a framed picture. We don't want to have a setup picture. We want to catch a real life in the moment event. Um, and so I think that start is an important start for our teachers of what does that mean? Because so often when we look at other sites, we'd see, kids all standing around holding a plaque or a certificate, but we really want to see the daily stuff. So we talk to our teachers. We want you to catch that moment that shows kids actively learning, kids actively caring, kids actively engaged. If we can get those, that's way more important. I think also most teachers don't want their picture taken. So it's kind of nice to be they get to take that picture and they're not there. So we ask them to do that, and then we, give us some information. And so we have set up an email that all staff know, and they send a picture and a brief description of what is that picture of, and they send it to social media email, which then goes to your team. And then your team, we have Ashley, who is phenomenal. I can't say enough about Ashley. She is phenomenal. But she takes you know, our words and our pictures, and then she creates it and puts it into, on a schedule to get it out there. And what we see as a town, we have just a little over 1,000 people in our town. We're seeing 3, 4, 5,000 people view stuff on a pretty consistent basis. We see alumni across the country, some across the world, who are then commenting. We're seeing other communities come in. But our ask of our teachers is to do that twice a month. And it makes a huge impact to tell that story. And we get to share the things that we're proud of and what we get to do. And really for the teachers, it's pretty easy for them to do, to think of those two things and really catching kids doing something. I mean, if you think of a kindergarten kid who's covered in paint, right? And they're doing their letters and they got paint in their hair, it's probably in their ear, but they're smiling. That is a great picture. And on the other end, going in and watching high schoolers who maybe they're actively doing an activity. And we're really big into vocational. We had a kid who he built a wood stove in class. And so we had a picture of that kid with his wood stove out there, and he got it going, but he wants to be a welder, and so that was his project. Like, those are two extremes, but those are things we can all be proud of what we do, and people, I don't think, always realize what that is. Another one is the world's changing, and we're a small school, but we have an esports team. And for those who don't know, esports is where kids are playing basically video games versus other schools around online. And for us, it's keeping kids home. It's keeping kids here at school actively engaged, because the more they do here, the better they do in academics. But if we had that, that's probably not going to be on the sports page in the local paper. It's probably not going to make the paper. But we put it on social media, and people are going, "That's great. You have an esports team," because that's what kids are doing now. So how do you? And then it shows that we're engaging them at their interest level. So that's what we ask teachers to do. The expectations for every staff member, from a custodian to a teacher to a para to a bus driver, to do 2 a month. And that gets out there. And then every once in a while, we have something that needs to get out ASAP. We try to stay away from announcements, because really that's in an email. That's can go out another way. But every once in a while, we need to put something out there just as a reminder. And again, we can just get a hold of Ashley. Hey, can you bump your schedule and weave this in there? And she does a great job. And so that's what we do. And then our goal is to really keep it up throughout the summer. We have summer activities. They do stuff. We have a weightlifting activities for our kids that come in the summer. And it's really a way for our older kids to stay connected with staff. And they go on hikes, because we're in the mountains. And we had one, and I can't remember, was it 10, 11, 12,000 people viewed this one picture of our teacher and the kids up at a high lake, and he's showing them how to fish. And it was just, here's a great young teacher with kids, and they're going for a hike as their reward, and they're fishing. And in our community, we're a hunting and fishing town, and that made a huge impact. And so, again, I think it supports what's valuable to us here in Morton.
Yeah. And you can highlight what's being taught, and some of that is just, you can't fake all of the stories and the continuous feed of positive things that are happening in your school by looking through your Facebook and Instagram page. So beyond social media, you mentioned you started a podcast, and you also created some video series. So tell me a
Yes.
little bit about those.
So the video series started probably 3 years ago, and now we work with Ashley to help kind of publish that out there. And what we do with the video series is every quarter we try to pick a component of our school, and we try to do a 3-minute video. And that video is really the idea that we want to take one program, one thing, and just highlight it with obviously video and sounds and staff and student comments. So every quarter we bring in a person who videos, and I was very fortunate that we had, when I first started teaching, I had a student who I became really close with her family. Her and my wife had stayed close on social media, but she ended up going to NYU and actually produced a couple independent films. And now she's living back in the area. And she called one day, she says, "I'm thinking about a job." And I said, "I think I have an idea for you." So now she actually quit her other jobs. This is what she does full time, is to make small 3-minute social media videos for small schools all over the area. And so she comes in and we say, "This is what we want to do." So an example is we have a coffee shop. That's one of our programs. We actually have kids where they run their own coffee shop. So she comes in and she films them, she interviews them, interviews staff, gets pictures of it in action, spends the day making that. And then we put it together and we put it out as a video, and it helps bring, social media, the words and the pictures is a great storyteller. This is another storyteller, just in a different format. And it kind of brings in a different group. I think some people may quickly look at the picture and move on, but the video, it slows them down. So that together has been really positive, to kind of put a little bit more and a longer duration on a focus. We've done preschool, we've done different contents, different teachers, vocational programs, competitions. She just is finishing up one now for our mock trial team. where we have kids. It's kind of theater, but they have a case and they have to go play defense and the prosecutors, and they compete against other schools in trials where actual judges are the judge of the mock trial and actual attorneys play the jury and decide a winner. So, highlighting again that to show that we're trying to expose our kids to other opportunities. The podcast is a piece that I've done now for 2 years. We are not as consistent as I wish I was.
Okay.
Sometimes life gets in my way and we forget. But the idea with the podcast and what it does, I think, really well is it puts a voice to our kids, an actual audible voice. And so we'll sit down. Obviously, I've done some sports teams. I've done some different age groups. I've done some different clubs. We did one that I really was students who have transferred here on purpose, have come here and said, I would like to choice into that district. And it was just a question of why? Why here? Why is this what you want to do? We've talked to kids who really enjoy vocational programs. We've talked to some elementary kids about what do you like about school? And it's pretty basic questions. I don't change it very often because I want the kids to say, but what do you like about school? What's your favorite thing? What do you wish was here? If you could think of something our community doesn't know about Morton and the school, what would you tell them? And it's, the kids are so intelligent and it's just giving them the voice. And I really just sit back as a moderator and it is an absolute blast. But between the pictures and the text, between the short videos, between the audio of the podcast, we're actually giving a really good voice and putting it out there for people there's information they would have never had if I didn't have those out there. And I think it really helps put an image to the district that otherwise I don't think we could achieve.
I agree. I love, we call 3-minute videos now almost long form videos, right? Because
Yeah.
short form videos are like the 30 seconds or less TikTok reel type things. But then definitely the longer form audio. About how long is a typical podcast episode for you?
They're about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Maybe sometimes they sneak up to 12. The
Okay.
kids told me the last time that they now expect me to put it on YouTube as well
Okay.
because they want to see themselves, which I'm like, okay. So, but I actually had kids help me, pick out the stuff from Amazon that we were going to create a little Bix board and our video. So we have that. I used to have a conference table in my room to have meetings, and that is now gone. I now have a podcast table that has, like you see on YouTube, it's microphones and a mix board, and it has a little 360 camera. So we're moving down that direction. But they're about 10 to 12 minutes for those, and it is 90% of kids just talking. And I think one thing that does is the older we get, the more our memory of our time as a kid is always positive, right? We very love us look back, we think of things that maybe at the moment we thought were frustrating or aggravating, but now we look back and we laugh because that's maturity, time has lapsed. But we always have this positive outlook about school, and very rare, most people say back when I was in school, right? And that it was a better time. Our kids have that same voice now. Tell me about your favorite teacher. And I think that connects with people. Tell me why she's your favorite teacher, or he is. Ask kids, when I ask an elementary kid, what would you like? More recess time. Absolutely. But a lot of times, though, the kids' comments of what they would like more of, they're pretty straightforward in what they want. They want more classes that give them more opportunities beyond high school. They want more time doing hands-on projects. They want more time to discuss topics of the world and learn about the world. I mean, kids are really interested in what's outside of their world, but they're also very interested to talk about their teachers. And I think this is the one that always gets me, tell me who your favorite teacher is and why. And they all change their teacher, right? Which is great because they all have someone to connect to. But you always ask the question why. And it's about they're kind to them. They care about them personally. They can go to them with a problem. they would, if there was an issue, they did something wrong, they would go tell that person. They'd probably get in trouble, but they understand. I mean, it's that connection that they have. And, both my kids graduated from here, and that's what I wanted for my kids, is to have adults in the building that had that type of relationship. And we see that all the way through. And I think getting that out and letting people know that's what your school is. Schools do not get a very good story told about them. And doesn't matter what you listen to in media. We just don't. Um, whatever people's opinion is, we're usually, the thing that makes the media is usually not positive. And then they spend a week on it, and it's one school out of how many? I mean, in Washington, we have probably 10,000 schools in our state. And you have one somewhere else in a different, do something. Well, we all get that label. So I think it's just a different way of sharing that there's caring and good people. Kids are happy. There's good stuff going on. We all have a lot of work we're doing. We always want to improve, but overall, kids are happy in schools, and we get to share that story about what's going on.
Yeah, and you guys have done such a good job being able to share that. And I think that's probably a big part, this commitment to communication and getting those stories out there and those opportunities to why you are up with students and opting in.
Yeah.
So it's important work. It takes time, it takes some dedication. I want to urge all of you listeners, I hope you come back and listen to this podcast interview just one more time, because if you're listening to it on the go, I'm taking notes while I'm going through this, John, and just the way that you ask questions of kids and the way you're framing things. I mean, a lot of times we get what we're looking for, right? And but we've got to give these kids the opportunity to answer some of these questions. And I think if you follow a few of these prompts, listeners, you're going to get better stories at your school as well. So, one of my questions was, what are some of the best social media stories you've shared? But you've already shared like a dozen or more, John. So it's been so good. So as we kind of wrap up, what would you say is your best social media tip?
I think the best tip is, I'm going to do it from a school standpoint, because
Okay.
that's is let others tell the story. And obviously, I don't want people, I don't mean outside, but in a school, the best people for sharing those stories are teachers, paras, bus drivers. When they are my storytellers and not me, we are much more effective at getting that out there. That is because it's that personal. It's that person who is there. They just put their, not a spin, but they put a personality to the message. When it's from me, it's third hand, it's second hand. It doesn't have the same value, when the second grade teachers that everyone in our town knows says this, they're better storytellers. Let people do what they're good at. And there's people way better in my district telling stories. So when I got out of the storytelling game, that was better for our district.
Yeah. Well, it's authentic. That's the word that I think of,
There you
right?
go. That's the word.
It's
Yeah,
very authentic and people relate to that. And while if you are a leader of a school, sometimes you want to control certain things because you're worried. When you have the system you have, whether it's using us or somebody else, we're very versed at what belongs on social media, what doesn't, what type of language to use, what not to use to prompt negative
yep,
things. And so when you can really trust that the stories coming in are going to get shared in the right way and basically get out of the way, there's going to be amazing things that happen. And I'm sure you have been able to learn even more of the positive things that are happening in your schools, right?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think in the early systems, my office, my secretaries and I, we were kind of the funnel. And even now, just letting it go and just following it, I do learn more. And you do have to have that trust, and that you have the people doing the right thing. And that's where your team comes in with Ashley, that we have trust in there. And, if there's ever any question, we work through that, which has probably happened once or twice. And just are you okay with this? But in the end, there are things that come through that get posted, and I thought, I don't know that I would have put that through, not because it was bad, like I just probably in my mind thinking about the role that I do as superintendent of budgets and personnel and HR and on and on. I don't, that probably wouldn't have been off the top of my list, right? And so letting my storytellers, my people connected, say this is what needs to be out there and trusting that, that has had a much better impact. The teachers are way more connected than the kids than I am, as they should be. They're way more connected to the parents than I am, as they should be, because they talk those three entities talk countless times a day.
Mhm.
And that's what they are great at. Well, they know that story to tell better than I do. And sometimes I think leadership's just getting out of the way.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, if somebody wants to get connected with you and maybe ask you a few more questions or learn about more about your podcast, what's the best way to get connected with you?
I'd say the best way to get connected to us would try to connect through our district website. My email's on there. Would be more than willing to talk to anybody about what we do, share our examples and how we go through there. So if you go to morton.k12.wa.us, that takes you to our website and my information's there. But I think that's the best way to reach out. We'd be more than willing to share what we do. I think one of the things about small schools is we are so open to everybody that we have other schools that visit us and we visit other schools and we interact that way. It's just kind of the way small schools do. So it's a very open format. And I'd welcome anyone with questions or thoughts or ideas or questions, please reach out.
Yes, and I'll share the website. I'll also share your email in the show
Yeah,
notes.
please.
And I just want to say, John, you're such a great leader. I mean, it really does take great leadership to get as great of buy-in as your staff has in this whole system. And just so you guys know, John and he found me via, a web search. We
Via
talked
Google.
for a half an hour and you were like, send me a contract. Like you were like, I know we need this. We went ahead and you guys are just doing an amazing job. And that happens because you've got a leader invested in, hey, we need to do this. You've got that buy-in. So I just want to say thank you and thanks to all of your staff. And Ashley loves your staff as well. We develop these close relationships. Ashley doesn't live in Washington. She's down in Illinois, but it almost seems like we're part of the community. So we're really proud of all of what you and your students and your staff are doing. So keep up the great work.
Well, thank you. Good staff and Ashley definitely make it work for us. So
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, you guys, thanks for tuning in. If you want to follow up with John with any other questions, you certainly can. Enjoy this. This is your Memorial Day. I guess a holiday, and you're probably wrapping up the school year, but let's tune in to how we're going to tell great stories for the rest of the year and into next year. And thanks so much for joining us. So bye,
all
John.
right. Thank you.